today we're doing things just slightly different. This was something that as we were planning the end of the year or thinking about the end of the year, I reached out to Laurel and I said, you know what? I want to do something to kick off the new year that's really informal, casual, just like you and I are talking. Like I was able to just go to each one of your offices and sit down next to you and have a conversation, because what I want to share with you is not a formal presentation. Of course, I do have a presentation, but just some things to encourage you, to inspire you, to get you in the right direction as we move forward. That's why we're calling it a mini webinar, more casual, just some things that have been on my heart and mind that I want to share with everyone who follows Sure Impact. So I am Sheri Chaney Jones, and I'm the president and CEO and founder of Sure Impact. We are a cloud-based platform that helps government and nonprofits track, measure, and communicate their unique impact and value. But that's not why we're here today. We're here to talk about this year. So my message today is for all the change makers out there. All of the leaders in the world, whether you're running a nonprofit, a for-profit, a foundation, a government entity, a social enterprise, doesn't matter what your tax status is, but you are a leader who is committed to changing the world. You are committed to your organization's mission and expanding your impact, regardless of what's going on in the community in the world. You wake up every single morning, like I do, and say, you know what? I have big things to get done. And yes, we might be having all of these different external forces that are going on in my communities or in the world or in my country, but I have big things to do. I've been put on this world to accomplish these goals, and by gosh, I'm going to go and get it done. That's who this message is for today. And what we need to realize is that luck is not a factor. Maybe you've gotten this far in your career or with your organization's success with a little luck, and of course, there's always feels like there's serendipity or luck that happens that moves us forward, but it only feels like luck when we're prepared to receive such luck. And so if we're not prepared, if we're not doing the right thing, when those right opportunities that feel lucky come to us, we're not ready to take advantage of them. So we have to remember that luck is not going to get us to those big, hairy, audacious goals that I know each one of you have. Also, and my CPA and accountant has told me this for years, so I chuckle when I say this, because I am definitely someone who is full of hope, full of optimism, full of positivity. But at the end of the day, as much as optimism and hope is a factor that can help grow us, help us go to where we want to go, hope is not a strategy, and fear is not an option. So these are my three basic premises for today, and why this conversation is so needed now is that we have been operating in a world of fear for the last several years, right, wrong, or indifferent. In some cases, it might have been completely justified that we were operating in a world of fear. But to get to where we need to go, to change the lives of the community members that we are put here to change, we as change makers, we as high-performing nonprofit leaders, we cannot let fear get in our way of success. So for those of you just joining in, I'm Sheri Chaney Jones, and I have spent the past 20 years helping leaders align their mindsets, mission, money, management, and measures, and that's a lot of M's, to create meaningful impacts for individuals and communities. And so, yes, I'm known and often talk about impact measurement and the importance of impact measurement. But if we want to use data to change worlds and to solve complex social problems, that's the tip of the iceberg. When we think about what, data is a tool. Data is a very powerful tool, but it's the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more that we as nonprofit leaders, as social sector leaders, as government leaders need to think about when we go forth to create our big strategies and create the change in the world we all desire to change. And so today I want to focus on 3 actions that you can take this month to make sure that you have an incredible 2023, regardless of what's going on in your world. And this is something you can use for your own personal goals. You can use this for your organization's goals, your team goals. But when I think about, how are we going to create these lasting social changes? Yes, Data measures is one piece of this whole package, and we'll be talking about a little bit of each of that throughout this little mini webinar. So let's get real. Where are we today? I always say that if we want to get to where we want to go, we have to know where we're starting from. And as we approach this new year, there is definitely an air of caution in the air. So much so that it was published in the newspaper just a few weeks ago. So for example, our local business journal, the Columbus Business First, published an article on December 30th, 2022, with comments from the most 100 powerful people in Columbus. And this included some of the most successful business and nonprofit leaders. I'm curious to know how you're feeling about the economy as well. So just feel free to type in the chat and let me know, how are you feeling about the economy? How are you feeling about 2023 and how things are going? But as you're doing that, I'll read what the other leaders were saying. So Curtis Williams, who is the CEO of Central Ohio Community Improvement Corps, a very well-respected individual addressing affordable housing, he's reported saying he was confused, costs are high and so are demands, what to do. And as a social sector leader, you likely feel that as well, that you have rising costs, whether it's salaries, inflation for supplies, rents, insurance, health insurance for your staff, but yet there's this increasing demand for your services, which creates an interesting mix. The Nationwide Children's Hospital CEO, Tim Robinson, and our town, our children's hospital is so much more than just a hospital. They're very involved in everything from behavioral health to housing, affordable housing, wraparound services for children. So a very well-known and respected entity here in our community. He just said cautious. That's all he had to say. And Lisa Cordes, the CEO of the United Way of Central Ohio, she said unsure and predicting a recession. So you may also be feeling these things. Fear may also be kind of this underlying attitude of your board and your leadership. And maybe you're worried about how 2023 will impact your donors' ability to give at the same level they did before. Or maybe you're concerned that the rising unemployment will mean more demand for your services and less resources to support them. Or what your staff may be stressed because they're worried about maybe one of their significant other or their spouse losing a job. So we have to recognize that there could be this caution, this fear within your organization. And so that's where we are today. And those are the things that we have around us when we think about, in order to get to where we want to go, we have to understand where we are. Now, the newspaper didn't ask me for a quote, but had they had, I would have had a different approach. Because I think with the right action, there is actually hope. Because I've been there too. I have been in those places of fear. In fact, in my 20 years, I've been through several of these cycles, and I'm actually excited for what's going to come out of 2023. And the reason why is because in my career, I have seen the most innovation come during difficult seasons. The most impact is created in difficult seasons. And I've seen this in the sector, when things are good and money is flowing and corporations are just giving money away, or, unfortunately, things weren't necessarily good in the world, but the money was sure flowing during the pandemic, we stay stuck. We become complacent. We don't try new things often. Yet when change makers are committed to the impact, they create extremely innovation in difficult seasons. And Tony Robbins, who many of you probably know, he's done a lot of research on this, and he's been talking a lot about this cycle of history. And what he's seen and what he's demonstrated in teaching, and I've seen this as well in my own work, is that good times often create weak organizations because times are good. And we forget that things might not always be that way. However, because we've become complacent, we've kind of had it too good, we often then, not intentionally, but create bad times because we weren't ready for the changing situations. But then when those bad times come, when those times of uncertainty come, then we rise up and we create we strengthen ourselves and we create strong people. And then because of that strength, because of that persistence, we then are going to go out into the world and create great times. So given that cycle of history, I actually have a lot of optimism for what 2023 is going to bring for organizations who are going to also embrace this situation and say, this is the time to strengthen us. This is the time where innovation can grow. This is the time when maybe I can try something I've never been able to try before because of the complacency. And now I have the dissatisfaction we need to try this new and innovative thing. But I don't want you to struggle. The good news is this whole webinar is about to the most that we can. Let's skip the struggle. Let's learn from each other. Like I mentioned, I have been through this. I've been through this twice in 2021 or 2001 and 2008. Both times I was still employed in the social sector. And when I was watching other organizations get their budgets slashed, in both of those particular times in history, the organizations that I was working for, we were maintaining, in many ways, receiving, the first one in 2001, we actually received a $5 million grant for $1 million a year over 5 years to do some extremely innovative work. It actually changed the course of my career forever. And then in 2008, I was working for the Department of Aging, and we were able to totally change the way our state thought about long-term care and funding long-term care. And the reason that we were able to do this is because we were innovative, and we used these practices that I'm about to talk about, these 3 things you can do this January to reach those big goals, regardless of what was going on in the economy around us. And unfortunately, though, at the same period, while these organizations were getting fully funded, were innovating, creating new products, creating new structures, creating new ways to move the sector forward, we did watch other organizations go out of business. We did watch other organizations shrink and cut and stay small. And we weren't doing that because we understood and implemented these principles of strategy at the beginning of our year, and we weren't going to let what was going on around us stop us from our mission. So what did we do? How were we able to be successful and defy the odds when everyone else was wait and see, an era of caution, if you will? So the first step, and I promised you in this webinar, I was going to give 3 things that you must do in January to be successful at the end of the year. So the first thing is understand and educate your team about the power of resistance. This is a very, very simple formula. I use it on everything. I use it with my junior in high school when I'm helping him set his swimming goals, all the way down to my team and building our success to help our customers and our partners, as well as my own personal goals and agendas that I work on personally. And so this simple formula, hopefully it will just change the way you think of anything you want to accomplish and how to accomplish it. So understand the power of resistance. So at the end of the day, the social sector is built by humans. We are serving humans, and we're in the, so it's social because it's human, right? It's human based. And so although we may use technology and tools to help us deliver our mission more effectively and efficiently, we're not building machines. We're not making widgets. And even if you are building machines and making widgets, those are programmed by humans. So we have to remember this concept of resistance. And that is that it is a natural state for human beings. And it's our job to rise above this resistance to change. We're wired to want to resist change because basically to keep us safe, and our brains are wired to keep us safe. And so you've probably heard the expression before, the devil we know is better than the devil we don't know. And so that whole concept, even if change is good for us, there's something in our brain that thinks it's scary. So it's our job to help ourselves get over it. And psychologists have shown time and time again that we need 3 ingredients. All 3 ingredients must be possible to overcome that resistance. So whether you want to lose 5 pounds or you want to totally disrupt Medicaid, we need to have these 3 things in our organizations and be mindful of them. And so the first is vision for what is possible. And so that's where, most of us are pretty good about visioning or casting a vision or writing down our goals, but we have to get very, very clear on what is the vision for the future. An exercise, it's a very simple exercise that you can do yourself or do it with your team, is say, hey, it's December 31st, 2023. And we are sitting around our conference table, just talking about the highlights of the year and how far we've come. What will you have accomplished? What will things look like? So that's a very simple exercise to do, but get everyone involved, get them to be part of that visioning, part of that, what would we look like at the end of 2023 if this was a very successful year? Now, the other piece of it is dissatisfaction with the current state. And that's why I have hope for 2023, because as our first expert had mentioned, is that we have costs are rising and unemployment or demand for our services is growing. That creates some dissatisfaction, right? This concept of I have to figure out how to do more with less. That natural dissatisfaction is actually going to help us achieve our goals. I know it sounds weird, but think about your own personal life and let's use health, because most of us at one point in time have set a health goal for ourselves. And if you think about, did you achieve that health goal or not? If it was a situation where you did not achieve your health goal, probably the reason you did wasn't because you didn't have a vision of what you would look like or feel like if you were healthier. It probably wasn't because you didn't know how to get healthy. It likely was because you just really weren't that dissatisfied with the current state. You were pretty happy with where you are. And that particular factor wasn't greater than your resistance to change. And therefore you stayed the same and didn't commit to your goals. But if you think about times, if you ever set a health goal and you did get healthy, likely it was because that dissatisfaction, whether it was a medical issue that triggered it, finally tired of not feeling well, whatever it was, but the pain was great enough that motivated you to make the change and overcome that resistance. And that is true for any change we want to make in our organization. And if we want to get to different results, guess what? We're going to have to change. And so that is the very first thing that I think it's very powerful, just to educate this one slide. When you get the recording of this webinar, just find this one piece of this one slide and share it with your team, and talk about the power of resistance and just putting it out on the table and saying, guys, we've got big things to do. We have a lot of people who need our services. We have a big vision, a big mission. We have donors, and we have community members who rely on us to be our best selves and to achieve these goals. But guess who's going to get in the way? We are. Our resistance is going to get in the way. It's okay. It's just normal. It's part of who we are, and we're going to move there. And so together, we're going to create a vision. We're going to understand what we don't like about the current state, and then we're going to come up with our concrete first steps to help us accomplish that. So that's step number 2, is how do we create those concrete next steps? How do we create those vision statements with measurable goals that are going to help us move us forward? So very first thing is we need to create mission-focused goals. Too many times I see nonprofits, their goals are revolved around revenue goals. So their outcomes are, I want to raise $1 million more, or I want to, create a marketing plan. And those things are great, just like data, right? Measuring impact. It's a great, powerful tool. So are your fundraising strategies. So are your marketing plans. But that's not why you exist. You don't exist to generate revenue. You don't exist to have a great marketing plan. You exist to change lives and change circumstances for the community. You exist to create happy, healthy communities where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So your goals, first and foremost, should be around what are you going to accomplish related to your mission. So make sure that you create these goals that align with your mission. And then your fundraising strategy, your revenues that you need to hit, all that stuff should be in relation to supporting you create those missions. So you're going to create your mission focused goals on what you want to accomplish. Then you can figure out how much money do you need to accomplish that. So when you're going out to fundraise this year, you're telling your donors, your stakeholders, this is what we want to accomplish this year, and this is how much money we need. Will you come alongside of us and help us accomplish this? Right? No one wants to, if you go to a funder and say, hey, we want to raise $1 million. Will you come alongside with us and help us raise $1 million? They will look at you and say, but for what? What is that return on my investment? Why do I want to donate to you, especially when times are tight and budget decisions have to be made much more strategically? It makes your fundraising efforts so much easier when you can go ask for what you're doing, how you're accomplishing it, and the lives you'll change because of it. So we've got to start there. We're going to create our missions, our goals related to our mission, and create short, medium, and long-term outcomes that we can measure our success along the way. And then this is the third part. This is how do we get to those concrete first steps? Well, once you've established your goals, before you start to think about, oh, I'm going to raise money, or I'm going to ask this person for money, or I'm going to write a great marketing plan, or I'm going to go to social media, I'm going to invest in a new software, whatever it is, right? Those are all things you may need to do. But before you do any of that, what you need to do is you need to make a list. You need to get real about what are all those restraining forces that are going to keep you from reaching your goals, as well as a list of all the supporting forces that are going to keep you from achieving your goals. So don't write any tactics down until you have done this process, because that's the resistance. That's the stuff that's going to get in your way, that as you start to take a couple steps forward is going to knock you back. So whether it is not enough time, or don't know the funders, or maybe you want to try something innovative, but you have a board member or a group of board members that are more conservative and don't see it that way. Just be real, make a list of everything that's going to get in your way to achieving your goals, and everything, and also make a list of everything that's going to help you, support you to move your organization forward. And then once you have that list, then you may start to decide what are you going to do next. And so that's why we say concrete first steps, because a lot of organizations, they create their goal statements, they have the vision for the future for the year, but then they just, everyone's excited and they start to go, but it's those restraining factors that get in their way that cause them to retreat back and decide, oh, it was too hard, we'll have to worry about that next year. So as we create our restraining forces, we then are going to create concrete next steps. Just what can we do tomorrow? What can we do next week? What can we do in 30 days? Focus on 30-day increments. Don't map out how you're going to achieve it in the whole entire year. And I'll tell you why. Because we've seen our clients go through this process. I can remember one very specifically. They worked with children with autism, and they wanted a champion. It was a statewide organization, and they wanted a well-known brand ambassador for them to bring awareness to the organization and awareness to the cause. So they wrote this goal down because of some big initiatives they wanted to launch. And that was something that they really felt like would be important to get the message out for what they were trying to do. And within less than, 3 weeks, they identified and had their champion. Now, they could have created this very, very long, drawn out plan on how they're going to recruit a champion, but they didn't need it. All they needed was to have the goal, the power of intention, and just, they had to reach out to one person who introduced them to one person, and boom, they had their champion. And within 2 months, they were booked on like 2 different, very prominent media opportunities to tell their story. And it all started because their intention was there, their focus was there. They were intentional about what they were trying to accomplish. And it's amazing how things like that happen, that what you think may take a whole year sometimes can be accomplished in a few weeks if you just have the right intention and keep asking yourself every single week, month, what do I need to do next to move myself forward and remove these restraining forces? So that is the 3 steps. They're pretty easy. I told you this was going to be a mini webinar because it doesn't have to be that complicated. So remember, the first thing we need to do this year, if you haven't done it already, is remind your team about the power of resistance. Just put it out there on the table and say, we've got some big things we need to do this year, but resistance is what's going to hold us back. It's okay. It's normal. It's natural. So it's our job to orchestrate our strategy so that we will overcome our own resistance. And to do that, we are going to create a vision. We're going to create measurable goals for our vision and where we want to go. Then we're going to identify all the restraining factors and supporting factors that are going to get to our way, which then will identify our concrete next steps that we'll take. And we are going to be using this process regularly throughout the year. So every single time you have a meeting, you're going to look at your strategy. You're going to ask yourself, are we on track or off track of our goals? Did we, if you hit them, celebrate them. Don't just hit them and move on. You want to celebrate the small wins that you had along the way as you're achieving your big goals. So we're going to set those goals. We're going to measure those goals. We're going to celebrate when we hit them. But if we're not hitting them, and you won't hit every goal, you're going to stop and pause and ask yourself for each of those goals, what's getting in our way? What are the restraining forces? What's that one thing I can do next week or tomorrow to overcome that particular resistance? And, these aren't big efforts. Sometimes this is just, I'm going to send that email. I'm going to read that blog. I'm going to set up that appointment or set up that meeting. I'm going to talk to someone about something, right? They're just the little things because it's the series of little actions that create real and lasting change. And so just doing each little thing every single day has a huge difference over a whole year. And you're just going to keep repeating that process all year long. And I can't wait to hear what you tell me in 12 months time, what you were able to accomplish just because you implemented this very simple strategic formula throughout this year.